everyone, welcome back to another brilliant endgame study. Today I'll show you a puzzle where you can actually stop the pawn that's on e2 with a couple of sacrifices and one brilliant move. In this position, the white rook cannot go to e7 or d1 since the pawn will take the rook and the knight is stopping the rook's view of actually taking the pawn. So here the only way for white to win is with the amazing move h3 check. There's only 4 more moves for black to play in this position, and first of all, if he takes the pawn, then he actually gets forked with knight to f4, and this position where white is pretty much up a pawn and a rook is completely winning. So black does not take the pawn. Another interesting variation is if black goes to h4. Here white can actually sacrifice the rook with rook to d4 check. And if black takes a rook, which is the best thing to do, then after knight x d4, white actually allows black to promote to a queen, because now white can move the king up to g2, and the threat of knight to f3 checkmate is actually unstoppable, unless black sacrifices the queen with something like queen to f2. And once again, this position is completely winning for white. Here the best move for black is just to play king to f5, but this allows the move knight to d4, and if the black king goes to, let's say, any of these squares, then the pawn will just be captured. So taking the knight with the bishop is the best thing for black to do. Now here white can play the amazing move rook to e7, putting a threat on this pawn. And there's only 2 ways to sort of defend this pawn. One is to go to c3, preparing the promotion, and the other move is to go to e5, which blocks the rook from actually capturing the pawn. Let's see what happens first if black plays bishop to c3. Well, here white can actually ignore the threat of promotion with his own threat, which is pawn to a6. After promoting, white will just calmly capture the queen. And here there's actually no way to stop the white pawn on a7 from going to a8 to promote. So obviously going to c3 with the bishop does not work. Now what happens if black plays bishop to e5? Well, here white can actually play the brilliant move rook captures e5, because after the king, let's say if the king doesn't take the rook, then the rook will just take the pawn, so taking the rook is the best move. Here white will respond with amazing move f4, the only winning move for white, and if black captures the f4 pawn, then simply king to f2. This pawn is pretty much dead now, and these 2 pawns will just basically have like a stare down. None of them will be able to move, but don't forget white has a pass pawn that will eventually lead him to victory. And that's it for today. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe, and also share with your friends. I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.